yeah, here we go. T.B.Photo X1.5 TFX, and welcome back to another video. Well, I know that I have been a little bit out of the picture for a while now, but yeah, life is what happens when you make other plans, so I've been a little bit preoccupied with work, and well, my 12-year-old stationary computer, or rather desktop computer, had a C drive that was a little bit on the fritz. Yeah, being 12 years old, I had an SSD that was on a whopping 120 gigabytes of memory, so I have finally upgraded it, which made it a little bit more workable to do these videos. So I've had a lot of projects in the making, but alas, technological limitations to it. But yeah, I have, as stated, a lot of things that I want to do. But anyway, yeah, I'm sitting here reading this book, Do It Right, The Fundamentals of Better Diving, a book by Jared Jablonski, the CEO of Halcyon Dive Equipment, and also one of the founding members of GOE, or Global Underwater Explorers, a dive school or training center methodology internationally recognized that yeah, have a little bit of the motto of training with the end in mind. Well, as you know, I am a CMAS certified diver, and you know, I know that these guys, this group, it's a little bit polarizing and so on. For you guys who are non-divers, it basically is a little bit, not completely, but if you're gonna generalize, it is basically that they have taken the methodologies and techniques and procedures from the most upper echelon of diving, that would be cave and technical diving, and taken a whole bunch of their how-tos and how not to, and pared it down to a recreational diving program, which has its benefits and drawbacks at the same time. But I'm not here to debate it, but I would say that this book, actually, if you're interested in finding out and research, I know that this is the 20-year-old first edition of this book, and they have recently, you know, released a updated version, and I have actually ordered the updated version, so it should arrive in a couple of days, actually, hopefully. But I think that this book is a great complement to another book that I have shown before, and it's this one by Håkan Jörgensen, which is Säker dykning, Safer Diving. And this one, I think that these two books are actually, if you want to improve the safety margins of your next dive, these are actually some really great pieces of literature to get your feet to, you know, study up on. But anyway, I think that this is all for me for this little intro, so yeah, I've blabbered along far enough. So here we're gonna go with the traditional intro. Yeah. In this episode, me trying to go in reverse. Used underwater flash, bargain or not. Recording the first recreational wreck dive of the year. A modern day classic that is of the same vintage as I am, a used state-of-the-art fin at a bargain basement price. Flashy camera, B-roll, motion sickness pills not included. A race where they all float, and I'm still sitting in a chair. Yes, I know that it's have been a little bit of a hiatus for me, as stated, technical difficulties and all on. But I also can show you now that I have done my part. Have you done yours? This is shot number 3, actually. So I have taken my 3rd COVID shot. So yeah, I am now, as the nurse stated, well, I am one too, but anyway, the nurse who administered the 3rd dose told me that now I am basically fully vaccinated. I'm not really in the age bracket or in the need to get the 4th dose. So as it stands for now, I'm fully vaccinated. I just did it today, so let's see if how I feel tomorrow. But smooth sailing so far. Yeah, so yeah, here we go. First order of the day. Yes, here is a little bit of a thing that I think that you eagle-eyed viewers have spotted, that there were two different types of fins in the intro here. Then first there were, in the pool, I had a pair of yellow fins on, and then in the intro also there were a pair of black fins by a completely different maker. Well, I'm gonna tell you this, it's a little bit of a story, and it was a little bit of a, you know, a little bit of a embarrassing event, but anyway, I'll just tell you here. These are the new fins that I managed to get. They are the Scuba Pro Seawing Nova fins. I mean, these have been really hyped by some YouTubers. I know, for instance, I know that Alec Peirce from Alec Peirce Scuba, he has a couple of videos where he talks very dearly about this, the Nova fins. And yeah, I'm gonna put some links in the description to his videos about these fins. The thing with these that is a bit of the niche, or the, you know, the way that they're designed is that, first of all, the foot pocket, you have the upper part here and the lower part here. There are some other fins made by the same company, Scuba Pro, the jet fin, where it's basically just cut off here that you put in your entire foot, and you know, it is very more boxy in its shape. But I don't have any experience using a jet fin type or model, but these are made in essence so that the foot pocket is a part of the propulsion system, and they've taken a little bit of a design cue from Boeing and Airbus with these winglets, so to speak. They are basically so if you are overfinning, that the water will not go over to the top. That is the theory, at least. And also, eagle-eye viewer might see these notches here in the fin. Why are these notches here? Well, it is that if you are over-finning and pushing down, you will actually bend the fin, and when you stop your fin, it will actually pull back out. So it will go like this, and then it will pull out, and it's basically, it stores energy. It will prohibit the diver from overexerting themselves, and then release the stored up energy at the end of the fin stroke. At least that's the way they're designed, and if it works, it works. If it doesn't, meh, they work for me at least. So yeah, I got these used basically, and I paid about $20 for these ones on a Tradera auction. So, you know, sometimes you have a little bit of luck, you know. So these, I know, new in Swedish kroner, they are, I paid 200 a bit, 200 plus shipping with these, for these ones, and new, these are about 1,700 Swedish kroner new. So from that price down to 200, that's quite the bargain. But why did I get these? Well, it was kind of out of necessity. Here's the story. And I put it like this: Monty Python couldn't have done it better. Well, April 30th every year here, at least before the pandemic, and this year was actually the first time after the pandemic, or after in quotation marks. But anyway, we have a race that goes on every April 30th here in Uppsala. It's basically that the university has a float race down the local river, Forsränning. I have some b-roll of this as well, I'll show you. And at one of the museums, there is actually that lies beside the river, there is a bit of a waterfall. And when these floats with about 3 to 4 students per float goes down, they usually capsize when they go over this waterfall. Okay, so the local dive club that I am a member of usually acts as public safety divers and rescues the capsized participants. And I thought, well, I can do that. I can, you know, be a part of this and, you know, help the local club. Big mistake. Here's the first thing. First of all, this will take over about 3 hours, because it's about 125 floats that are in this race. So they said that, well, we don't know the temperature of the water, this lovely brown water that flows down the river in early spring, so take the thickest wetsuit you have. We're not supposed to have dry suits because we become a little bit too less mobile in them, so to speak. So I took my 7mm Morris thermic, which is a semi-dry, and it's actually in 2 parts. It's like suspenders or suspender pants, rompers, and then a jacket over with a crotch strap and a built-in hood. What I didn't think of was that this wetsuit were from 2006, so fairly old, stiff neoprene, 7mm thick, 14 over the chest and torso and abdomen. So when I managed to put that on, it was like a bloody straitjacket. So yeah, high visibility vest, a helmet of course, and my Morris Avanti X3. I thought they were Quattros, but no, they were just X3 fins. Well, before the race we're gonna do a test jump, and I thought, okay, I'll do that. Here we go, I jump in. First thought, I can't move. It's like a straitjacket. Second thing, I don't have the strength to swim against this current, not in this suit anyway. So what were we told? Well, if you can't swim against the current, go onto your back, hands behind your bottom, and just glide down with the water flow, and you'll just go up some stairs where the water flow is a bit less. So yeah, that's about the point. Well, not so easy. What actually happened was that one of my fin blades got caught under a rock, so I do basically a standstill belly flop. So I flop over from my back to my belly and get a mouthful of this brown fish tasting water. My first thought, stock up on toilet paper. Anyway, yeah, after that ordeal I thought that, okay, I need to go into the side of the river because it's flowing too hard in the middle, so I can at least fin perpendicular into the side, so it is a little bit less of a high flow rate. So one fin stroke, no problem. Other fin stroke, I just down with the foot, the fin is gone. So the one that was stuck under the rock, probably still stuck there. So one fin on, other fin gone. So about 10 meters after we have, yeah, this is just right after I got into the water. There is this little tree that grows right up through out of the river. So don't you think I managed to bullseye the other fin blade right into that miniature mangrove swamp of a root system? So I do a involuntary 180-degree turn, so instead of flowing feet first, I'm now flowing with my head first. And as anybody who has played Star Fox 64, do a barrel roll. So 180-degree with an inclusion of a barrel roll that was equally involuntary, and another mouthful of brown water. So now actually both fins are gone. And since this also is the first first float race after the lockdown, it is record numbers of attending spectators. So both sides of the river is jam-packed with spectators, seeing me, the diver, flopping around like something that I can't describe further. So actually after that it was smooth sailing nonetheless. And after a bit of panting, I managed to actually I think I basically crawled up those stairs, stone stairs, to get to safety. After that, that wetsuit went into the garbage, and I helped on land instead, pulling friends from the dive club and capsized participants up from the water as well. And I have some B-roll that I shot with another camera that I'm gonna do a video of shortly. And yeah, that's basically how I lost a wetsuit and and a pair of fins with a fairly large audience seeing it. So yeah, life totally worth it because I got these out of the equation. So yeah, that was it. So that's my little story about yeah, anyway, as James Blackman Divers Ready has said so elegantly, in order to become old and wise, you first have to be young and stupid. So this was partly a part of my being young and stupid. Young in relative terms, and more about that later. But anyway, yeah, that's the story about how I lost a pair of fins, but still also got a pair of state-of-the-art fins for a bargain basement price on Tradera. So yeah, let's move on, shall we? And we are back. Well, in this episode we're going to talk a little bit about my underwater photography rig here. That the main part is the Sony A6000. Why did I go with such an old camera for an underwater rig? Well, there are a couple of reasons actually. This one has still a 24 megapixel CMOS APS-C CMOS sensor for 24 megapixels in 3x2, or the equivalent in 16x9. It will be about 20.1 megapixels, and it has an ISO range from 100 up to 25,600, a maximum shutter speed of 1/4000 of a second, from 1/4000th of a second down to 30 seconds of exposure. So yeah, and you know, new price, you can still buy this new actually. A Swedish electronics chain, Elgiganten, still sells this camera, the A6000, with the kit lens for about, at this point in time, 5,990 Swedish kroner. And on eBay you can get used examples of this from between 3,500 to 8,400, depending on how many goodies are thrown in to sweeten the deal. So for this one, the positives are the prices, the E-mount, the 24 megapixels, the availability, the full HD video capability, the camera raw, and you know, these cameras are fairly cheap and they are fairly high megapixels. For an amateur, they're great, and they have all the controls that you want yet for full manual shooting, for aperture priority, shutter priority, and the video modes on this camera are very good as well. My particular example, as you will see in videos and examples, I need to do a sensor cleaning on this one, but that's besides the point. So what is the negatives with this system? Well, it is a earlier Sony E-mount, which means that this is the part of Sony's mirrorless history where it eats battery life. So you get about, if you do two 40-minute dives, I would say that you should actually, as a precaution, change the battery after 2 dives with this. So 80 minutes, you're basically at a little bit less than half power, less than 50% battery life. But that might just be my batteries. There are aftermarket parts on eBay available, so I don't think that's the big issue with it. So as a whole, this I think is a brilliant camera to start your underwater photography career with. Also great benefit in my opinion, the pop-up flash on this one is complete T.T.L, which means that I have one of the quick buttons, the C1 button on top here. I have that actually set to flash exposure compensation, which means that I can independently, if I am in full manual mode, or if I want to map the C2 button to the ambient light, you know, normal exposure compensation. So I have exposure comp on aperture priority for the shutter speed, which is the ambient light, and I have also the flash exposure compensation on a quick setting so that I can change the ratio between ambient light and artificial light independent on each other to, you know, as the guys at Backscatter here on YouTube, gonna get link to some of their videos in the description. Great stuff. As they say, the ambient aperture, the ambient exposure compensation is what they call dial a blue, and I can't other than agree with that one. So for that aspect, with all the settings that you can have on this camera, it is a brilliant first beginner's underwater camera to use. At least that's in my experience. So yeah, that's it for the camera. Then we have the housing here then. I have the Sea Frog's housing. This is the earlier version that is supposed to be waterproof down to 60 meters, which is over twice the depth that most recreational, non-technical divers are going to. So 30 meters, that is about the maximum. So this apparently should be able to go double that depth. As stated then, new prices on this, I found it in dollars on Sea Frog's website. It's about $270 new. I got this one used actually on eBay. Most of my camera gear I have gotten that you see here have been bought used on eBay or Tradera or other internet auction sites. So, you know, bear with it and try to find bargains because they are out there, even in this economy. But anyway, this one is then watertight down to 60 meters advertised, and that is 195 feet. It is a really great feature of this housing that I think should be standard on all underwater housings is a internal leak alarm. So there's a little bit of a sensor in the bottom of this one that it starts to beep if it starts to flood. So that's a really great little thing here. What else does it have? Well, it has this 67 millimeter front filter thread. So I have two examples here on the camera arm of one first the dome port and a macro close-up attachment, but more about those two later. Well, what is the negatives with this underwater housing? Well, it is completely sealed with a double O-ring for the back here, but that also means that there are not you're not able to change ports on this housing, which means that you're a bit limited to the lens options that you have. So the standard, you know, kit lens for the A6000, the 16 to 50 millimeter 3.5 to 5.6 actually works great in this housing, and for my own personal, I do mostly wide angle photography underwater. So yeah, it eliminates a weak spot that you can't change the dome on the front of this housing, but that's also a negative because you are a little bit more limited with the amount of lenses that you can use. But there is a workaround with that one, and that is, as stated here, wet lenses that you attach on the front here. Yeah, anyway, I first have this 4-inch dome port, and this one, you know, it goes for about $150 new on Sea Frog's website. It is, you know, if I put it like this, it is very hard wearing actually, because the first time I was going to test this one from a dive that I have some B-roll of that I'm going to show you. But anyway, when I first got this out, I put it on the camera housing, I put it down, and all of a sudden when I was taking out some stuff from the car when we had gone to the dive site, I dropped one of these. This is a 2 to 4, what is it? I think it's a 4 kilogram lead weight, or no, this must be about a 2 kilogram lead weight. It actually dropped onto this at about 50 centimeters, half a meter's height, and I'm actually dropped one of these lead weights onto the dome port, and I thought that, okay, either it's cracked or badly scratched. But it actually turned out that when I was rubbing it a little bit, only a bit of the coating from the lead weight had actually rubbed off on the dome port, so it actually rubbed off. I didn't have to buff it or anything. It actually took it. So if it can handle one of these lead weights dropped from half a meter, I think it actually tells to it that it's fairly well made, actually. Okay, let's see if I can put this back here then. Yeah, and also on the back on the other side, because it's double threaded, this one. Let's see if I can take this off. I actually found this fairly recently, actually, on Tradera, and it was a little bit of a impulse buy, I have to admit, but it is a diopter, one of these that I think it is Japanese made. This one, Inon, it is I-N-O-N, that made this lens, produced by UWDIGIC. I can't pronounce this actually, .org, made in Japan. So I'm probably going to do some B-roll of this one as well, so you can see who made it and so on. But this diopter I have yet to try on this camera housing to see if it works for underwater close-up photography. But at least this system with the store points here on the arm actually makes it so that I get a fairly versatile system, even though I'm just using the kit lens on the A6000 with the Sea Frogs housing. So I have all the range. I have normal, I have wide angle, and I have close-up. Not super macro or anything like that, but for all intents and purposes, I think that this is a very versatile system as it stands. And that actually brings us over to the next item of interest. Yeah, and also as you can see on my little my little system here, I have this, as I'm calling this Sea Frogs housing, I'm calling that Kermit. I've talked about that in a previous installment. And then I have Miss Piggy upside here, that is the little, action camera housing for these two. These are two different Campark action cameras, the Extreme 1 Plus UHD 4K and the Extreme 2 UHD 4K. I'm not using these in 4K mode, I'm using them in full HD because that's what I predominantly use. I don't really have the need for 4K as of now. But anyway, there are a little bit of a difference between these two, but it is a little bit meh which one I'm using. Both work equally as fine in my opinion. They are a budget alternative to more famous action camera brands such as GoPro. But what I've actually started to notice when I looked at some of the video I've taken with these action cameras, it is that you really need an alternative light source or an artificial light source underwater in order to get a decent video quality. Well, on both my YS01 flashes by sea&sea, those have pilot lights on them, but those are more for the flash and how to put the flashes to illuminate your subject for still photography. They're not video lights. But I remembered that I had this little copy of a video light that has a few settings and also a SOS strobe function. So I've actually been able to put that on one of the floats on the arm here. So for my next dive, if I'm going to do some videoing, I'm going to try to use that little 3 LED floodlight to get some better quality video. So that's a little bit of it for the Camparks. They are fairly very inexpensive, and there are dime a dozen on eBay and so on to get for very cheap prices. So if you want just the first underwater or action camera in general, I would really tell you to look up Cam Park. They are actually a fairly decent alternative to GoPro in my opinion, though GoPro are better quality, there's no question about that. But if you're just the one starting out, not knowing if you want to continue with the sport and so on, and don't want to blow a pile of cash on a GoPro setup, these are a good beginner's choice to just get your feet wet, pun intended. So yeah, that's it. Okay, so on the system also I have not one but two YS01 flash units from sea&sea, which I've talked about before, and I have some of the predecessors, also the YS110s, but those are a little bit of an older version, and I'm actually gonna try in the future to do a comparison about them, because yeah, there is a little bit of pros and cons to both of them. But anyway, the YS01s by sea&sea, they are without a diffuser. They are 100 times 100 degrees field of illumination. With a diffuser, which I unfortunately didn't get with my used pairs, it's 110 times 110. The positives with these ones is that they take AA batteries, 4 of them in each. They are depth rated to 75 meters. They have manual plus T.T.L. Well, the pilot light is a bit weak in my opinion, that's a negative. And the price actually, the new price on these flashes, are about 4,800 Swedish kroner. But in all fairness, there are not many alternatives that are in the same price categories and are packed with the same amount of features, because these ones can both do D-ttl, or the T.T.L system that sea&sea has pioneered, or at least made very popular in my opinion. They also do full manual, and the good thing with these also then with the manual system is that they have pre-flash delete, which means that if you have a camera that has the newer style T.T.L flash systems, when the camera puts out a pre-flash with a known flash output power that it rates and then calculates the actual flash output needed to get a good image, or a good exposure I should say, you can choose and have the benefit of both with these flashes. Another guy at the club, he has the YS03 for the Olympus TG5. So a TG5 in an underwater housing with one video light and one YS03. The difference between the 01 and the 03 is that the 03 is T.T.L only. But that's good also in itself, because as I previously talked about with the A6000, the Olympus TG5 can also split the exposure compensation and flash exposure compensation, which means that you can change the flash exposure compensation on the camera, and that will also then affect the YS03. So that's a little bit of an advanced setting to use, but still I think that it's good to have that little workaround if you have a T.T.L only flash for your underwater photography. So that's a little bit of it, shall we? And moving on. Yes, there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. I think that this is all for me for now in this over long and overdue episode. So yeah, as always, this is Tobias Bergström from T.B.Photo X1.5 TFX, and I'll see you guys in the next video. And as always, please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one. So take care from now on. Bye.